You starting recording. All right, you went away. All right, you're back. All right, hold on. All right, I'm off. Back on.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Sports Reports as ordered. As always, I am your co-host, Mike Wilson, aka 25, because I only agree with about 25% of y'all anyway. And then I got my guy over here, Raphael Rutley. What's happening, bro?
Man, I'm just chilling. Just life out here in Jersey. You know what I mean? Just showing off.
Yeah, see, I like that
I
old
mean,
school
they
going
moved
on
to
right there.
Brooklyn. You know, but
Yeah.
been in Jersey for like 8 years now, so I figured I should start go ahead and represent alongside with them.
And you know what? I'm sorry, New Jersey. All I've been reading on Twitter today is about how we need St. John's to be good again. We need St. John's. We need New York City. Where's Hofstra? Where's Manhattan? Rutgers is doing good this year. Give Rutgers some love. Like stop it.
Shout out New Brunswick.
That's right. So, hey, we're here. We got topics for you. We got some content. We're going to get it going. So, we're going to start off with Coach Prime, aka Deion Sanders, for those that are uninitiated. We're going to talk about expectations for year one, dive into some expectations going forward, what we think year one looks like going forward. And then we're going to talk about previews. We got the previews. Today starts the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I hear that this is the best weekend of the year when it comes to football, but I don't know. I'm a little partial to rivalry weekend in college football, but it is what it is. So we're going to see if anybody's going to pick an upset, if anybody's going to go all chalk. Going all chalk is boring, but we'll see what happens. Then we're going to transition from there to talk about Justin Fields and what the Bears should do with him. Should they trade the number one draft pick to try to get more picks to get him some help? Should they trade him? What does the future look like in Chicago? We're going to talk about coaching vacancies. There still hasn't been any jobs filled just yet. Apparently, the Colts are trying to interview as many candidates as there are teams in the NFL. I don't know where they're going with that. And then the last thing is get it off your chest. So, Raph, what does this weekend look like? What's going on in the world?
I know we're talking a lot of sports. I mean, we're in the middle of a lot of quality sports seasons. You have the obviously the NFL playoffs going on right now. Then you have the hype of the NFL draft coming up in a couple of months. We're gonna talk about that forever. Salt Lake City is getting the NBA All Star game here in about a month. You got the Lakers last night. With the steal, the half court, the layup by Schroeder. You got a lot going on. You got Sacramento, best record in California. You got young quarterbacks, old coaches, inexperienced coaches, bad GMs, good GMs. It's just, I mean, there's so much to talk about with sports. I'm just glad we have this platform so we can talk about what we want to talk about. Because if you look at some of these channels, man, they only talk about the same 6 topics every single day, all week long. So give us an opportunity to speak our minds about some different things that we feel passionate about. So let's get right into it. Deion Sanders, my favorite player. The reason I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, I was probably 10. My dad was in Germany, 9 to 10. And we had one channel called AFN, Armed Forces Network. Shout out to all the dependent kids and the veterans who know about AFN.
Yeah,
Back in
yes.
early AFN was one channel. We was getting CNN headline news every 2 hours. You was getting a Nickelodeon show, and then you get some sports. Every once in a while, maybe some soap operas or something like that. But you have one channel. That was it. So on that one channel one night, I saw this guy come out the tunnel with the smoke and then the fire, so whatever, all the stuff come out. He's doing his little dance. I'm like, who is this dude wearing 21? And like, why can I not take my eyes off the TV? I'm like, you know what? I like this. I like this guy. I like this team, and I've been rocking with him ever since. Through the heartbreak, ups and downs. Dion icon, Hall of Famer. Literally said in an interview last night, there's too many guys getting in the Hall of Fame. Like, if that guy in the Hall of Fame, I need my own hall in the Hall of Fame. I mean, this kind of guy you're dealing with in Colorado. I mean, we all probably seen, I'm going to say all because we saw his opening meeting with the players.
Hmm.
Some people took it as a slight, But I'd rather you be straight up with me. Like everyone says, keep it 100 with me. Keep it 100. Keep it 100. You know, they only put the R anymore. Just keep it 100.
Mm-hmm.
He did. He said, I'm bringing my legs with me in this Louis. If you know you're a coach bag, go and get hop in that transfer portal. Because they went 1-11. You as a player should want to work that hard and only win one game. I get it. Sometimes it just doesn't work out in your favor. You don't have the talent, whatever the case may be. But you gotta do better than 1-11. And then you don't really have any leverage when a new coach comes in. He's like, listen, y'all go and get in the transfer portal. We gonna say, well, I was good on the 1-11 team. I was one of the best. You say you're one of the best out of the team that won one game. I mean, like, what can you really say? So he did put. I want to say he put a target on his back. I think that's just an overused cliche. I do think that he put himself in a position where he might be able to resurrect a college football program in this day and age with the amount of recruiting, the amount of money that comes around. If he can turn it around in Colorado, I don't see him being there very long. But if he can turn it around in Colorado, I mean that'd be one of the greatest coaching that we've seen in the 21st century for sure. That'd be great in the championship runs to turn around a program that's consistently that bad. The middle of the country is not a good. It's not a prime location for football.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
good high school Colorado football, but there's not that many people in the state of Colorado. You've been out there. You've been stationed in Wyoming. We were stationed together in Utah. We spent 6 weeks in Colorado. There was no traffic because not that many people.
Yeah, and I was stationed in Colorado Springs, so very familiar.
Yeah, so the only reason we had traffic because it was a flood and we had to turn back around. Even then, we went back and forth multiple times. It wasn't even like you were stuck in bumper to bumper traffic. We got out, turned back around, went the other way, went north, came across a different direction. So it's not that many people in Colorado. So you don't really have that many players. So even if you get you have to get all the best players from Colorado to really have a great program. But he's getting best players from Florida. He's getting best players from Mississippi. He's getting players from Georgia, Texas, best players from California. So it's exciting to see what he does. I mean, we look at the schedule as it's laid out right now. They're opening TCU in Fort Worth. That's gonna be a tough game. I don't know how many guys are coming back from TCU.
Well, what I do know is that Max Duggan isn't coming back, and I know that Quentin Johnson isn't coming back. So maybe breaking in some new players, maybe that gives CU a chance. I don't know if I see it, but
I imagine that. I mean, pardon the pun, to be in prime time. I can see that being was that Saturday night? I can see that being an ABC, ESPN Saturday night game, 7:30. All eyes on Colorado. TCU, granted, it just suffered a defeat in the college football playoff championship, but I can see that being a primetime game. They call it
hmm
primetime for a reason, so I can see him really. I can see them pulling that one off.
hmm
Because he's coached his son through high school. He's coached his son through college, ups and downs. They didn't win every game in Jackson State, and this last season, they lost the last game, so they went 11-1. So I think that experience, being able to coach your son and your son performs, because sometimes you could be your son's coach and it doesn't translate. It might be a situation where you're putting him in the starting position just because he's your son. Well, he has a few years, state championship runs in Texas, just good quality football that he can lean on. So he's like, hey, I'm starting, I'm bringing him with me. I'm bringing my luggage. It's Louis. That he's not just bringing his 18-year-old son who's never played a college football game before. So I think people can galvanize around that. Like, okay, he's not just putting this on the back burner because he wants to bring his own players in. It's like his players have had success, and he had success, considering he's a Hall of Famer, a couple Super Bowls.
But let's put the brakes on the Shador Heisman watch. I still want to come to the cookout, y'all. Like, don't kick me out. But let's put a break on the Heisman talk. Let's put a break on the All America talk that I've been hearing, seeing on Twitter and all this kind of stuff. Because I'm on Twitter now. 2-bit reports. But seriously though, I just feel that we have a certain expectation, but we have to remember not only did they come from FCS, they came from like a bottom three conference within FCS. So, it's not as if they were playing against the best of the best. No disrespect, and I ain't trying to go there, people. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to give y'all the truth. I'm sorry. They
This what
didn't
we
play
call it
against
5, y'all.
they didn't play against the best of the best. They absolutely did not. They played against, oh, wait for it, Bethune Cookman. Let's not get into them right now. So I want Dion to succeed. I want Shador to succeed. I don't know if I want Travis Hunter to succeed because I'm a Florida State fan, but seriously, I do want him to succeed. But the point being is that we got to see these guys against FBS competition first of all, and not just FBS competition, because there were rumors that he was going to end up at USF down in Tampa. So if he was playing against Tulsa, if he was playing against Navy, maybe that's a smoother transition. But he's going to be playing against the Heisman Trophy winner, the current Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams. He's going to be playing against Oregon and Phil Knight and the Nike money and all that good stuff. And that I did live in Colorado. I say in my heart that Colorado and Nebraska are playing each other again. But they're bringing in a coach who is known to turn things around. So, let's just slow down just a little bit, So I don't know how the TCU game is going to go. As of today, I'm going to pick TCU. We'll see what happens once we get through spring camp, all that kind of stuff as we get closer to the season. But here on January 21st, year of our Lord 2023, I am picking TCU to win that first game.
So we got Nebraska.
Toss up.
Nebraska, what did Frost do there? Did he how was that was a proud program.
Well, in my estimation, Nebraska is what you described about Colorado, but times 5. There's nobody in Nebraska. There's no big recruits that ever come out of there. So when they were in the Big 12, this was easy. You just go down to Texas. You get some recruits that didn't go to Texas or OU. You were next in line. Were they gonna go to Oklahoma State over Nebraska? Were they gonna go to Texas Tech over Nebraska? Not with Nebraska's history. But now I put you in the Big 10. You lose that Texas pipeline. So now you got to compete with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. In your own division, you have Wisconsin. So, it's just different because of the access. Like, I'm sure they still get Texas recruits, but they're not just picking them off.
Penn shift got them a little bit of that Big 10 money. They still should have been able to bring in top recruits.
But NIL is still new. NIL is only a couple of years old.
The recruiting money, the capability of sending out multiple recruiters, scouts. Like, hey, I can send 2 guys to scout in Texas and they can go together, hotels, rental cars, airline tickets. I can send 2 guys to Ohio. I can send 4 guys to Michigan. I think a lot of the money, I think we all look at the money like, oh, the money that the players get. It's the support money, because if you think about it, if you had access to a school like Alabama, they could probably recruit 18 kids from a certain playing bracket in Georgia. They can go up there and they can have them all on a bus, nice charter bus, taking them from one event to the next event to the next event, all paid for by Alabama. Like, you take them to a game, you take them to some kind of function where they get to meet some former players. They get to go maybe to a nice dinner. You get them, have them wear a nice suit or whatever the case may be. Maybe, I don't know what the money, how it looks. Can you buy them a suit while you're recruiting them? Can you say, hey, this is part of the recruiting process? I'm not sure. I'm not really abreast of that information, but I think having access to be able to do that, like to be able to send a guy on the road for 2 weeks and have him in a nice hotel to where he can have meetings. He can book a meeting room and the recruits can come to like a nice ballroom meeting room, meet a couple of players, meet the strength and conditioning coach, because you have the money to send multiple coaches and players on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big recruiting trick. And I know they have all these other little nefarious recruiting tricks, but I think just the stuff that you can put on the books I think that's where a lot of that money would go. Sometimes people might take that money and just say, you know what, we're going to just use it to try to buy players. But I think if you used it wisely, you'd be able to do it.
Well, needless to say, the world has changed. When I was a little kid, every week all I saw was Notre Dame. There was maybe a SEC game mixed in there. There was the Miami Hurricanes because they were winning at the time, and there was
Florida.
Nebraska, and there was Nebraska. But nowadays, everybody's on TV. Rice is on TV. The food is on TV. So you got ESPNU, you got ESPN2, so on and so forth. The world has changed. So like for me personally, if I'm sitting there trying to decide what school I want to go to, as somebody comes in and they go, "Hey, what schools have been recruiting you?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm down to my final three. I got Nebraska, I got Illinois, and I got Northwestern or whatever, just three random Big Ten West schools." So I'm looking at this and I go, "Okay, Northwestern is more of an academic institution, so I can't expect that they're going to become a football factory or be a football factory. So I might slide them out unless I am an academic kid that wants to go do something later in life one day." So it comes down to Illinois and Nebraska. Now I got to make a decision. Do I want to live in Illinois or do I want to live in Nebraska? You know what I mean? I'm choosing Illinois every single time, and Champaign is not
Same
Chicago.
thing about Colorado. Like, how is Dion going to get these guys from Miami to want to live in Colorado? Like I said, you and I lived out west. Hey, people, I'm about to tell you something. Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, these places are gorgeous. It's like living in a postcard. So you
Right.
can tell people in the environment, the space, it's clean, the people are very nice. You have, you just have, and it's different. So I think the fact it's very nice and different as a recruiter that Dion is like, listen, man, he could tell the guys, I grew up in Florida. I went to Atlanta for my first team. I was playing here. I was playing here. I got to see this. I got to see that. You're about to get that right now at 18, 19 years old. And then you take them there. Like if you were to literally look at fly into Colorado, fly into Utah, fly some of these places and just look around, it's like this is a nice place. Very spacious, very clean. It's not congested at all. Anywhere you go, like I was in Utah 8 years. I think I was in traffic 3 times. And one time because it was snowing while people were trying to get to work. 5-lane interstates. Like I said, the people are very nice. You have a lot of big chains that come, like some of the restaurants you get because they have so much space. Man, your Applebee's is so big. Applebee's be like a whole corner block. There's so much space. You can take up golf. Then you have the winter sports, hiking. Like it's just so much you can sell a player on. Even though, like, hey, I'm from Miami, I'm used to this. But you're not going to lose out on like just a great environment if you go there. And if you're a recruiter like Dion, I think you can easily sell someone on that.
Well, I think that's what it is that one, he gonna say, "Hey, come look in my closet. Look at this gold jacket. Hey, look at my hand. Saying I got all my fingers. Look at my fingers. Like he has that to rest upon. Whereas in Nebraska, Matt Rule has, "Hey, I turned around Temple. Like, hey, I came in Baylor after the scandal and I cleaned it up. And then I got fired by the Carolina Panthers. So he has that cachet, and he also with the meetings that he did with the players that you talked about earlier, he's embracing the new age where he has this team following him, recording all his things, and it's like living a reality show basically. And I think that attracts kids as well. And oh, by the way, he's arguably the best player at his position in NFL history. So he has a lot going for him that these other coaches don't have. Like I thought Scott Frost was a decent coach. His teams just couldn't finish the game, but they still didn't have top end talent to where I was supposed to turn on the TV and say, Nebraska is down by 3 to Ohio State with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So for the fact that he even had that going on, and by the way, the dude is a national champion at UCF, undefeated season, hashtag UC facts.
Yeah, but
It is what it is. It is what it is, but
that's an example in my eyes of that. He was just in a hotbed of talent in Florida and was able to just get better players simply because every school in Florida is packed with 4 and 5 star talent. So if you have 100 players in Florida that are 3 stars, and then you
Mhm.
50 that are 4 and 5 stars, and all of these 4 and 5 stars go take up all the positions at Florida, Florida State, and Miami. And UCF is like, listen, we'll take 30 of you 3 stars, and the talent, the star rating is based on what somebody else who writes a report thinks.
Right, right.
Your numbers can be, you could be a running back, you can have 900 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, and they'll call you a 3 star. And another kid have 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, they'll call him a 4 or 5 star. Everyone's jumping out the window to get to him. You're like, listen, I'm only a couple hundred yards behind him, and I played 9 games, he played 12.
Hmm.
They don't look at that. It's like, oh, he's a 4 star. He went to this school. This school is state powerhouse. I went to a school that isn't one, but still put up numbers. And then you get all of those guys at UCF, and then you put them on the field together, and it's like, oh, with these, like this Captain Planet kind of style, like all these 3 stars, we are a powerhouse versus a school like, look how many guys out of Alabama 4 and 5 stars transfer out. How many guys out of LSU? How many guys out of Texas A&M are transferring out 4 and 5 star guys? Because they go there and it's like, oh, it's 4 dudes in my position.
Hmm.
When you play corner, like I came here to be a running back. Well, we got 6 running backs, 4 of them 5 stars. So
Well,
you can corner, I'm like on blank corner, and they end up transferring out. Well, the UCF guys show up at 3 stars, like, oh yeah, we can make this work.
well, you know who does not have that problem? The Colorado State Rams. So I'm putting that one in the W column for Colorado. And I know you Colorado Buffalo fans out there want to get rid of this rivalry because you feel it does nothing for you. Keep that game at Mile High or whatever they're calling it now. Last time I checked, I think it was Sports Authority Field, but it's Mile High, damn it, Mile
Now,
High. You know, then you got at Oregon. So this is the game where the adversity comes in, I think, because this has the potential to get out of hand. Like this, Bo Nix is back. This has the potential to be a 45-10, a 51-17 type game. So this is the game where they get their heads blasted. And now we see how Dion reacts. We see how the team reacts. Can he re-galvanize
so you got
after all the hype?
2-2 after Oregon, is what you're saying.
Yes, I have him 2-2 after Oregon because I gave him the Nebraska win simply because it's a home game. I think they're evenly matched. New coaches. I just went with the home team. So 2-2. They could still be 3-1 because, like I said, TCU is going to be breaking in a new quarterback. But I'm gonna stick with 2-2 for now.
All right, so I got them 3-1. I think I think in college football, if your quarterback is seasoned,
Mm-hmm.
it's just such an advantage. Well, Bo Nix is what, 21, probably 22 by the time this game is played.
Mm-hmm.
Transferred, he's played tough competition in the SEC, transferred up to Oregon and playing tough competition in the Pac-12. I think that quarterback head-to-head matchup, he's dealt with adversity. Shadir Sanders has been, he's dealt with stuff, but I don't think he's dealt with it on that level to where he had to like pack his own bags and then
Mm-hmm.
move and make his own way. So I think having that advantage at quarterback, it is ultimately like that advantage at quarterback almost had Ohio State in the national championship game.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
missed the kick. But the reason that they got it that far is because CJ Stroud was a man amongst boys. So I think
Right.
that quarterback is going to hurt them against Oregon and USC.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're gonna make prime time earn it
Yeah,
because right
I
after that
three
Oregon
and two
game,
at the USC game, just because I mean
yes,
USC is they're 42 points waiting to happen.
yep. And oh, by the way, they just grabbed another 1,000-yard receiver. This time from Arizona. So this transfer portal has been very good to Lincoln Riley. If he ever, and I mean Chris Jericho ever decides to care about defense at all, USC is going to be back. But
Yeah,
since
get
he
some
doesn't.
defensive linemen. Linebackers getting the transfer portal too.
I
Safeties,
know, but he got to grab them. He got to grab them.
linemen dropping the transfer portal. Grab a couple of them. Like
Yeah.
it's like it's is that he just I think what he wants. This is what I think Lincoln Riley likes. I think he likes almost winning it because then the next year is, oh, he brought in another guy from the transfer portal, and they'll go 10-2 again.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we almost had it. 11-2. Oh, we almost had it. Oh, we were
Yeah.
almost. And then every year that USC endowment money is going to be able to keep replenishing that team. They're going to sell out. They're going to be on TV. What are they going to the Big 12 or something? Big 10?
Big Ten. Mm-hmm.
They're going to get that money. They're going to play. Oh, can you imagine the USC Michigan game somewhere probably in Dallas, or USC Ohio State game in the Superdome in Atlanta, some crazy, or in Indianapolis, and
Yeah, I was
just
gonna say, side note, can I get some of these neutral site games not in SEC territory? Can I get some of
no,
that?
no, you
Yeah.
can't.
I can't get
Yeah,
that. I
you got
can't get a
to
game at SoFi.
you got to sell it out. What? I mean, we're gonna get to the NFL playoffs, but why do you think the preview the neutral site location for Kansas City versus, or I'm saying Kansas City, the AFC Championship game neutral site is way down south.
Well,
They could
you
have
see
played.
that, y'all? You see that, y'all? This is what Joe Mixon was talking about. This is what he was talking about.
Yeah, he'll see. But they could have done it in Arizona. Arizona's not in the playoffs. That's
Yeah,
cold
that's what.
and it's warmer, but you can't sell it out. You
Mm-hmm.
can feel you can fill a stadium down south with football fans.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
Kansas
yeah.
City fans if it's Kansas City versus Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, whatever. However the however it plays out to where
So if this happens next week, Atlanta gonna sell that thing out.
no people are close enough to get to Atlanta. That's what I mean. Like people
Okay, okay.
have from all these other places down south to get there for.
Right, right.
So there'll be extra fans in there. They might have to drop the price of the tickets because I don't know a bunch of non AFC fans spending, you know, their kids' college tuition on playoff tickets for a
Right,
team that isn't
right,
even in their region. Which that was
right.
right. You're not even in the right region.
I know that's where I said, hey, you mentioned Indianapolis. Indianapolis is like perfectly centrally located. So obviously there was probably some scheduling conflicts that we're not privy to. So I'm not going to beat the NFL up too bad for that. I was mad originally, but I'm just mad at the neutral site. Forget all the rest of the stuff. I don't care
Yeah,
where it's at. I'm just mad about the neutral
neutral
site.
site.
But then
But
Colorado schedule.
football's mastered the neutral. They mastered the neutral site.
Hmm.
But then college football is willing to lower the prices of those tickets to
Hmm.
ensure that every seat is full.
Right,
I don't
right.
know if NFL operates that same way. So if you look at it, so you got like so we got Dion 3. I got him 3-2. You got him
2 and 3, and then the schedule gets a little, yeah, because I got them losing the TCU, I got them using, I keep saying got them losing to Oregon, and I got them losing to USC. So those are my three so far. But then it gets a little bit better because for some reason they get the two new coaches back to back. So they get Arizona State now coached by Ken Dillingham, who was the offensive coordinator at Oregon. He left to take that job, and we don't know what kind of sanctions Arizona State is going to face in the next couple of years. But
lose every game just for the way they treated Herm Edwards.
I can get on board with that. But with that being said, I'm
So
gonna give Colorado this W. I'm gonna give Colorado the W there, and I'm also gonna give them the W the following week against Mr. Troy Taylor and the Stanford Cardinal because Andrew Luck and Christian McCaffrey are not walking through that door.
well, you're not gonna get John away off the bench. Fans
Hey,
on the field.
if I could, I would. If I could, I would. So I guess that brings me to 4-3 right there.
4-3. To me, I got them 5-2. UCLA, Chip Kelly.
Now that matchup I'm interested in, just to see his offense.
You know,
Yeah, like I want to see Prime's defense, his defensive thoughts and, ability against Chip Kelly in action. UCLA is going to be breaking in a new quarterback because DCR finally graduated after his 18th year there. So
like the quarterback Van Wilder. That was
yes. Yeah, so UCLA is going to be breaking in somebody new. That's going to be a tough game, for Colorado going to the Rose Bowl. Luckily for them, fans don't go to the Rose Bowl unless it's the actual Rose Bowl game.
And it's not big. I've been there. I went there for like a fireworks show like 10, 12 years ago. It's not a big stadium, so it doesn't really present like a home field advantage for UCLA.
Well, I just
It
feel
looks
that with
it looks
UCLA
like a
breaking,
big high school stadium.
well, I
So
just
it's
feel that with
now
UCLA breaking in a new quarterback, a road game might be a little tougher because UCLA is not really. They're going to play some cupcakes along the way, So like, if the game was in Boulder, they're on the road, so I feel a little bit better about that. But you know, it's UCLA. But then on November 4th in Boulder, finally back to Boulder, Colorado gets to play against the Oregon State Beavers, who came out of nowhere last season to win 10 games, and they went and got DJ Alphabet. So, Oregon State, Jonathan Smith is a great coach. You never heard of him. You don't care about him because he's got that plain name, and he coaches in a city called Corvallis. Corvallis.
that's what they put on like when you're kidnapped and they don't know who you are.
he's
That,
the real John Doe.
that's more John Smith. That's more play than
Yes.
like
Yes.
if you met someone and told them your name was John Smith, they would think you were lying to them.
Yeah. But they got DJ Alphabet in, adding him to a 10-win team. And I have always told Oregon fans that the worst thing for them is if Oregon State ever gets a quarterback, because they don't tend to do that. Not saying that DJ is the answer, not saying that, oh my goodness, they got themselves an NFL style quarterback and they're going to just run through the Pac 12. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, at his best, he's better than anything that's come through there since, say, the 2002 Fiesta Bowl.
It's been a while, and like I said, that's your advantage. And he's so big.
Mm-hmm.
It's just if he didn't have a solid arm, then someone would be like, "Hey, son, being a defensive end is not that bad." Like he's a couple of protein powder packs away from playing at a different position. So I think that's a good move. Like I said, seasoned quarterback, been through some things, learned the programs from Clemson, can bring some of that intensity there. What it's like to be in a winning culture, what it feels like to have expectations leveled upon you. You went to St. John Bosco in California. I remember watching a documentary on him. It was like between him and another quarterback that ended up going to Iowa State. And then the same quarterback show had like Spencer Rattler and guys like that on it. So, you just, when you're in that spotlight for that long and then having to pack your bags and move across country to another program, I think it can make or break you. But for someone, I think his talent will help them, get some victory. So that's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona Wildcats, I'm not sure how consistent they are. They tend to not get the best quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stay home. They end up going to like Texas or Oklahoma, so they always miss out on talent. So I'm not sure what their program looks like. It must look and or operate like a JV kind of program because Arizona has good football players that end up going
Mm-hmm.
east to
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma, Texas, or west to California. Not many get sprinkled up north to Utah. I don't think they can handle the cold, but a lot of them leave. So I think
Well,
Arizona
I
program
think I
are
think your
always up.
JV comment. I think your JV comment is perfect because the worst thing that ever happened to the University of Arizona was having a school in Phoenix, having a school in Tempe. Because why I lived in Tucson, and I'm not knocking Tucson. It is a good city. I didn't say it was a great city. I said it was a good city, but it does not offer what Phoenix does. It does not, like, mostly when I think about Arizona State, and I ain't trying to be the creepy old guy, but I always hear about the women at Arizona State. And living down there in Tucson, I can tell you they don't have a lot of that. So with that being said, I love Jed Fish, what he's doing at Arizona. The improvement last year from the prior year was just off the charts. They almost made the bowl game. They came together as a team, but I think Colorado wins this game. I don't think they have anything to fear. So I have them. We didn't mention it, but I have them losing to Oregon State. But yeah, I got them beating Arizona, and then it gets tough again because now you go up to Pullman. Which nobody wants to go to Pullman. People that live in Pullman want to live there, but nobody wants to go there out
That
on the. I think I'm saying this right. I know my supervisor at work gonna correct me if I say this wrong, but out on the Palouse in that little
Duluth,
the Palouse
what
over
is
there in that or in that Washington
Easton?
corner. Yeah, that eastern corner that meets Idaho. That's that little area because for some reason, Washington State has a rivalry with the Idaho Vandals, but
Because
that's
they're
a
close.
whole.
I didn't realize
Yeah,
they.
that's what I'm saying. Like
I didn't realize they're close until this latest the murder case. The I didn't realize it was only 50. It was like 15 miles. 15 miles,
yeah,
15 minutes.
yeah, the Palouse. Yep, that's what they call it up there. That's going to be a tough stadium to play in. Like the best teams go up there and struggle, i.e., Oregon this year. Like it's just not a good place to play. It almost reminds me. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. It reminds me of going to Mississippi State with the Cowbells. Like, so it's just perfect that Mike Leach was at both those schools because I see a lot of similarities there. So for the time being, I think it's a toss up, but I'm gonna lean Washington State. And then the biggie, Salt Lake City, Rice
Well,
Eccles Stadium.
hey, I love Dion all day long, but Salt Lake City ain't beating Utah. Utah has NFL talent in the trenches, and that's what Dion's mentioned that his Jackson State teams weren't prepared to play those $2, $3, $4 million, preseason kind of games that college football tends to pay teams to do. Blows my mind that you would accept, $3, $4 million for a team like Mercer to go play LSU and just get $3, $4 million and end up spending 2.5 of it just to get players and everybody back around. You're only playing for $500,000. But one of the things he mentioned was the interior offense, defensive line, the line of scrimmage, that size advantage. Well, Utah has been grooming their program to win that battle.
Mm-hmm.
Linebacker, defensive line, offensive line. Quarterback playing Utah is always, you got Cam Rising, good quarterback. You always get good skill position players. They get a lot of JUCO transfers, a lot of California guys.
Mm-hmm.
They've been able to recruit Florida and Texas pretty well. So a lot of players, like I said, a lot of those 3-star guys from Florida, Texas, they end up going to JUCO route. They make their way up to Utah. So a lot of skill position players are from out of state, and Utah is good football.
Mm-hmm.
Have good football in the city of Salt Lake, and then you have good football with BYU and the product and the way they develop football and the football around Provo. So it's a lot of good football, a lot of big tough farm kids who live out in the state. So you get a lot of good football players. We get a lot of trench players, a lot of Polynesian, Pacific Islander players play in that interior line. Colorado should be able to recruit those same players from California or even get those players out of Utah into Colorado, but they just stay home. They stay home either because just it's a good football program. They stay home because of religion. So they have NFL defensive line and offensive line talent. And I think if you are a rebuilding program or you're a new program, if you're going into a rivalry game with the school, all other things can be equal. But if the one team has the advantage at the line of scrimmage, you got to pick them. And it's been the case since Utah and Colorado both went to the Pac-12. It's been Utah's interior line play that makes all the difference because that's how you run the ball, that's how you pass the ball, that's how you create turnovers. So the score might be 42-7 or 52-14, whatever the case may be. You think, oh, they were throwing the ball all over the place. No, they were just being dominated at the line of scrimmage.
You happen to remember the score from this year's game?
Oh, it was crazy. It was like 63 something.
63-21. Yep. So I don't think it's going to be 63-21. I
I
don't
don't know.
think that's going to.
I don't know. In the year, he could make up 7 touchdowns.
No, but I think you're still looking at a 38-17 or something along those lines where you can sell progress. So best case scenario, I have Colorado going 7-5. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I got them around 3-9, and that's just them losing the games that I call toss ups. So like your Washington States, your Arizona, so on and so forth. So I think I'll just land in the middle and go 5-7.
I like 7-5, and the middle 6-6. I just think that the recruiting class has playmakers.
Mm-hmm.
The JUCO transfers, and there's still guys still yet to commit. I think signing date's February. So I
Mm-hmm.
think Dion's probably going to surprise you. He's going to be able to
Oh yeah,
have
yeah.
more players that just in a game, a toss-up game like your Washington State game, your UCLA game, your a game like Oregon. Maybe they just get a punt return, pick six touchdown. They can get an edge rusher that was committed to Florida, the decommit,
Mm-hmm.
someone who can just, as an individual playmaker, just make a play that puts you at 14-0 when the score shouldn't have been like that. You keep
Right.
14-0, something like, because that's how normally how these upsets occur. It's not just the teams line up and they go head to head and they go back and forth. Something happens. It happened Utah USC, both games this year. It was Caleb Williams was kind of immobilized, leg was kind of hurt, which allowed the safeties to play a little bit more aggressive because he couldn't run as much, so he had to throw it. So they were able to jam wide receivers more. They played a little more cover two, and you could just make plays happen because you also have athletes. You have
Mm-hmm.
you have good JUCO transfer. So you put team like Oregon down 14-0 kind of out of nowhere. Do they press? Do they keep
Mm-hmm.
together? Like you said, you mentioned the new coaches. You got Nebraska has a new coach. Arizona State has a new coach. Stanford has a new coach. So you have all these teams that maybe they show up expecting to win. You get them. You get Oregon, Colorado after Colorado, or Colorado's 3 and say they're 1-2
Mm-hmm.
going into Oregon. Oregon takes them lightly. They're down 14-0. Pressing, fumble on the kickoff. Just little things like that. You got a home game. You're expected to win. You got a guy, Bo Nick, probably going to be on the Heisman watch just because he's been in the game so long. Probably might be a primetime game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of little things happen. So 7-5, 6-6. But that's all predicated on how he does recruiting. But I think he's locked in. I don't think he'll be at 3-9. I can't see 3-9.
I hope not. You know what I mean?
I can't see Dion just the staff that he has. I mean, he has head coaches who
This is true.
lose to be offensive coordinators. I mean, he had Mike Zimmer down in Jackson State coaching defense. Mike Zimmer was
True.
he was winning the Minneapolis Miracle
Yeah.
like a few
Yeah.
years. It wasn't
But that
like
was, like I said earlier, though, that was like taking candy from a baby against that competition. It ratchets up a little bit.
he got
Yeah,
those
definitely.
come there. Like it's not a matter of like I don't think it's like, oh, just because you have these coaches that you're just gonna be you're gonna just automatically be victorious. But the ability to have these coaches in position at a small school,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have guys leaving those schools to come up with them. So I think having guys who are head coaches in all these positions will be able to. You don't have to be the guy to teach, hey, penalties get us killed, turnovers
Mm-hmm.
get us killed, because you understand that philosophy. You have offensive coaches that used to be head coaches. They know play clock. Don't waste timeouts. Don't call these plays in these scenarios. Where sometimes if you have like, we talked about with Miami last week,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
and, and then he doesn't hire a bunch of ex head coaches. So now no one's recognizing that the play clock's running down. Whereas if you're offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, your special teams coordinator, all used to be head coaches at FBS, FCS, or even NFL level, you have that breadth of knowledge just surrounding the captivated player. So every room you're in, Dion doesn't have to go in to the running back room and talk about how ball security is job security, yours and mine, because he has a head coach teaching that position. So he knows this is the philosophy I want. So he can overview, he can do the recruiting, he can do the booster meetings, he can do the ESPN spots, he can do the other things that draw attention to Colorado and still have his imprint on the team. I think a lot of coaches fail when they don't have that, cachet, because everyone's not going to want to come. If I'm not a head coach, if I'm a former NFL head coach, I don't want to come to a college, a small college, and be behind a first-time head coach.
Correct. Yeah.
But the fact that Deion's able to do that, I think that in of itself will keep them from being poor. Some games you're just going to get out muscled in certain positions just because you don't have the NFL talent. There's going to be guys off the Utah offensive defensive line and linebacker before they get drafted every year.
Right. And I do spend time on allbuffs.com in the buff zone. So shout out to Brian Howell. He keeps me up to date, doing a great job. So since, the early signing period has come in and transfer portal is open, Colorado has added 31 players total, and 15 of that 31 are transfers. So it's going to look a little bit bolder, a little bit different in Boulder. But what I really want to know is if Raph is going to tell us that Jacksonville is going to beat Kansas City.
This is what I'll say. I'll say this. I'll say I remember watching the Ohio State Clemson college football playoff game where Justin Fields threw that beautiful deep bomb to Chris Olave. It was incredible. And Clemson did lose that game. But I remember watching Trevor Lawrence. I remember watching, I think it was a play inside the red zone. But I remember watching him and the way he dropped back, hit his back foot, and threw the ball. Like the way is like he threw that ball like this is where this play is supposed to go. I know this is supposed to go here. And he delivered it. I think it was like a couple, like maybe a corner and the linebacker had their hands in there. Ball goes through, they score a touchdown. He just was fighting an uphill battle. You get a couple of, you get down by a couple of scores. Now you're down 3 scores. You're fighting an uphill battle. But I remember thinking like, people will say, oh, because you lose your last college game, then you shouldn't go number 1 overall. And I remember seeing like, he knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's doing. You can see he knows what he's doing. And then I saw the same kind of throw a couple of weeks ago when they played Dallas. He threw a touchdown to Zay Jones. It was a bunch of people in the area. I'm not sure if everybody ran the right route, but I remember when he dropped back, he was going through his reads. He saw Zay Jones, and he let it rip. There was no hesitation. Because if you look at some of these highlights, a lot of DBs and linebackers are there when the ball is arriving. It just this close, and it's a reception. You get it here, it's a deflection. It's just something about his ability to do that, make those kind of throws. The trust he has, Doug Peterson, him proving that Urban Meyer does not belong in the NFL. I think that's a bonus for me. But with all that being said, Kansas City gonna win this game, and they're gonna win. They're gonna win it because the cornerback Eric Reed said something that I read the other day. He said on 3rd down, I don't even go pick up my helmet because I'm confident that we're going to convert. And someone's like, oh, that sounds arrogant. Like, that's not arrogant. I think that's him understanding, like, yo, I trust my team. And if they get down 10-0, Patrick Mahomes is not going to chew the defense out for not getting points. He's not going to chew the lineman out. He's like, all right, let's go, boys, with his Kermit the Frog voice. and go out there and get them galvanized, and then 2 drives are going to be a 14-10. I just think that Arrowhead being as loud a stadium as it is, I,
Not according to Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, it's not. I don't think it's going to rattle him, but it's going to cause situations where you try to check at the line, 6 seconds left on the play clock. You trying to check out of whatever you got to check. You got to call wide receivers, and they might have to burn the timeout. Little things like that happen. He threw 4 interceptions the first half of his first playoff game. I know it looked like he forgot all of that in the second half, but he throws another one in the first half. Kansas City, does it get to him? Because he's like, oh, okay, I can't do this again. Because Andy Reid is not going to let you come back. You get up 14 points. Like, yes, I know last year they had an 18-point lead and Cincinnati came back. But that was an anomaly. That's not like a standard practice for Andy Reid. And I just think the way that Patrick Mahomes orchestrates offense with those weapons, I think it's more collaborative. I think he buys into it. So that's why no one puts their head down when they get down. Like when they got down 24-0 to Houston and in the first half and went into halftime with a 28-24 lead. We don't talk like, how do you not talk like that was bananas. They was down 24-0 in the first
We don't
half.
have time. We don't have the time to talk about that when the Cowboys exist.
Oh my goodness. We'll get to them too. But like, so I like Kansas City. I think the defense has been I think they've been plain vanilla. I don't think there's been any world beaters. I think they just say, you know what? If we keep it all in front of us, we force field goals, maybe get Chris Jones, Frank Clark, get a sack. I think Chris Jones doesn't have a sack in the 13 playoff games since he's been in Kansas City, which is weird for someone that talented. But I got Kansas City winning this game. Reason nothing crazy, 27-17, something like that.
I always come in here and I be wanting to say stuff, and it's like you're just inside my mind. Because we don't talk about it beforehand. Like we might like ask each other who we got winning, but we don't break down why we're picking whoever we pick. Because the first thing that I was going to lead this discussion with is that Jacksonville is 2-6 when Trevor Lawrence gets sacked more than one time in a game this season. So that does include last week. So they came into the playoffs 1-6 when he got sacked more than twice. I'm sorry, more than once in a game. So these two teams did play on November 13th. And they played in Arrowhead, so maybe that's why Trevor Lawrence doesn't think it's very loud there. But what he doesn't know is that was the regular season. This is the playoffs. So I truly, truly expect Kansas City to try to imitate Florida State. You're going to hear that chant all game long, And when they played that first time, Patrick Mahomes went 26 for 35, 331 yards, 4 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence went 29 for 40, 259, and 2 touchdowns. I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence has to outduel Patrick Mahomes because that's not realistic. What I'm saying is that there needs to be a lot of ETN involved. There needs to be short passes as far as screens and things of that nature to just get their receivers out in space and take time off the clock depending on time and situation of the game. What I like is the game within the game because I knew that Doug Peterson and Andy Reid go back. So if anybody knows Andy Reid, it is Doug Peterson. What I didn't realize was that they had been together in some shape or form for 27 years now. So he really knows Andy Reid, including coaching with him in Kansas City. Obviously, Mahomes wasn't there yet, but he knows Andy Reid very well. Also, Kansas City is top.
All the plays.
That's what they say.
EB.
That's what they say. So and shout out to EB. Shout out to EB getting that interview with the Colts the other day. And they interviewed Aaron Glenn, so it's not just a Rooney Rule thing. Maybe. So the Chiefs are top 10 in the league in yards per carry. The only problem with that is they're 24th in attempts. Like let Mahomes take a breather every now and again. Like it will open up your offense even more because in this game against Jacksonville back on November the 13th, which finished with Raf's final score of 27-17, Pacheco ran for 82 yards. So you don't necessarily need to say, hey, Patty, go out there, throw 52 passes, and let's just impose our will on them. But what the defense needs to do is take the middle away. Because when they played on November 13th, it was shallow cross all day long. Shallow cross all day long. So what Kansas City might need to do is try to make Trevor Lawrence a perimeter passer. Try to hit those up the sideline throws. Not saying that he can't do it,
So you're
but
saying you shouldn't adopt Los Angeles?
yeah, they should adopt it. But
Adjust the deep
adjust.
route.
Yeah. So when he does give you a reason to adjust.
Maybe let's keep the guy back. Let's not
Yeah.
jump every under route.
Yes, and just to give you, I want to qualify my statement because I talked about how Kansas City was 24th in rushing attempts. So Kansas City is 1-2 when they rush for less than 75 yards. So apparently they in those attempts, like I said, they lead they're top 10 in yards per carry. So they get yards when they run. Just do it.
Because they run like four different running backs, but not because they're running. Like it's not like they put a running back in for specific things. Like with Dallas when they run Zeke and Pollard, it's like, okay, when they're in there, they're going to be the focal point of the play calling for a 12-play drive. Whereas Kansas City just basically uses their running backs almost as, I won't say decoys because it sounds dismissive, but everyone's afraid of the pass.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City, you shouldn't be afraid of the pass as much. I know Patrick Mahomes is a great pass, but it's not like they're trying to beat you over the top. They're just methodical. He doesn't make mistakes. So I think defenses like overplay him, and he checks it down to McKinnon, and he gets a receiving touchdown. He runs a quick draw play to Edwards-Helaire, and he gets you 6 or 7 yards. And then they'll line up and just straight up give the ball to Isaiah Pacheco. Shout out to Jersey with the Rutgers. I mean, he's from down south, like South Jersey, Cumberland County. He's actually a good friend of mine. Is friends with his dad, so he's like they were talking about that draft night. And they had a little party. It was pretty cool. It was a big moment. I think he went over 100 yards late in the season. He was like the first 100-yard rusher for Kansas City for a while. It was a good thing. So the way Kansas City uses their running backs is somewhat unconventional, but they're so effective in the pass game that you got to get them in a game like he had at Denver, where he kept trying to throw it when they should have ran it. Like you got to get him to where maybe he thinks he can just beat you guys no matter what. And I think Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid, I think they might look at that game like, all right, I think that's the game where they kind of realize, all right, we're doing too much. Because I don't think he's had a game like that. Patrick Mahomes had a game like that since, because he threw a few of those interceptions right into his hands, the linebacker, number 47 for Denver. Granted, that guy looked like he used to play tight end the way he was jumping and catching them, but he was standing.
Right.
It wasn't like he was coming across the field in some kind of cover one. He was like the rover in the middle. He just was standing there. Patrick was like, I can get in there. He was like, boop. So I think they learned from their mistakes there, but
So speaking of rushing, since I brought that up, Jacksonville is 5-1 when they allow less than 71 yards. And going back to that, what you were just saying, that's a product of having people like Mecole Hardman, who you can just shovel pass and he'll get you 15 yards at a time. So
does he care to play football? I've talked about this before. Like I watch him and it's like, you're probably just as fast on the field as Tyreek Hill.
Easily.
Asking for those same kind of routes.
I don't know. I'm just hoping to see this man in the Olympics.
Do something 40. He ran a 4.2 something, a 4.3 something at the combine as well. So it's like, I don't think Tyreek clocked at like 4.1 or anything crazy. I think he probably clocked anything around 4.3 something. It just seems like he should be getting those routes. Hopefully,
I
Kadarius
agree.
be healthy. Is he playing?
Who?
Kadarius Toney playing?
Yes, as far as I know, he is. Last I checked. But with that being said, I got 34-20 Native Americans. And I think this is going to be a game where we look at the score at times, it might be 20-13 or something along those lines. And you don't actually feel danger that Kansas City is in trouble. Like the score will be close for a while, but you're never going to sit there and go, well, for the most part, you're not going to go, oh, Jacksonville has a chance, because Kansas City is still going to be forcing their will on them, if you will. But speaking of forcing will, what is Jalen Hurts' shoulder feeling like today?
Man, that shoulder's fine. Like, listen, these NFL players, I mean, I remember Champ Bailey playing that whole season with the brace that kept his shoulder intact. Guys playing with bone spurs and ankle this and knee this and brace this up. I haven't seen JJ Watt not wear that elbow thing for 5, 6, 7 years. Gronk playing the same way. These guys, they play through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He landed on his shoulder. They were the number 1 seed, so they let him rest. Let him rest. He got a few reps in a couple of games. They're gonna be fine. And people talk, oh, he can't run. He can't run. He only averages 7 rushing attempts per game for like 27 yards. So people are making it seem like they're just running Jalen Hurts all the time. It's like, no, he's throwing the ball to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders. Like, these guys, like, he's distributing the ball. He's more than just a big running quarterback. I know he's strong, and people mention how he's normally pound for pound strongest player on his team from high school. He was a powerlifting champion, so probably the strongest player on his high school team. Alabama, when he went to Oklahoma, leader in the locker room, and he's smart. He's a
So just so I have this clear, he's not Michael Vick.
Michael Vick, self-admitted, said, "I wouldn't even know the game plan. I just knew when the play got called that if I didn't like the first read, I could take off and let my athleticism take over." He said that himself.
Right.
He's like, I knew that at any given moment in Atlanta, the Atlanta years, the Philly years, he said Andy Reid taught him how to like really read defenses and how to use athleticism with his arm. And I think a lot of running quarterbacks are following that move because Vic didn't break down. He wasn't injured a lot. I think he had a broken leg, which can happen on any running play. It wasn't like sustained hits after hits after hit after hit.
Right.
So I think a lot of the mobile quarterbacks with strong arms, I think a lot of coaches are looking at like how Andy Reid handled Vic and converting him from just a runner with a cannon to a cannon that could also run. So it just the dichotomy just switched there.
Yeah.
But he wasn't reading game plan. Jalen Hurts, smart quarterback, humble, sat behind Tua, mentored him, went to Oklahoma, was a Heisman candidate, went to Philly behind Carson Wentz. You haven't heard Jalen Hurts say anything crazy in the media. I watched that, what magazine was it? They were doing a little clip of interviewing rookie NBA players, NFL players on how I spent my first $1 million, and they gave him like a stack of like fake $1 million, and he was talking about it. I think 650,000 of his first $1 million went to some kind of investment. Like 60,000 went to his sister to pay off her college debt. Then he separated his money for taxes. Then he had money for, I think he said he bought some clothes for like $4,000. And then it was like $520,000 went to savings or some kind of investment. So like that was as a rookie, how you spent your first $1 million. If other rookies, oh yeah, so I went and got this condo in Miami. I'm paying $30,000 a month rent. Like it just was way different, So
Right.
he just been different. And they're playing the Giants.
Don't you do it.
Stop it.
Don't
Come
you
on.
do it. We
I
just came off of Daniel Dimes Appreciation Day.
Come
Don't you
on,
do
man.
it.
Look, as we transition to the eight, we're gonna go AFC, NFC, then we go back to AFC, and we go back to NFC because we're gonna save Dallas for last because they move the needle. We're trying to get some traction on our show. Dallas moves the needle. We'll go with that. I think we might have
Okay, Roman Reigns. Okay.
so Philly Giants. I like the Giants. They're a great story. But Daniel Jones was only responsible for 18 touchdowns in the regular season. They played 17 games. If you said, "Hey Daniel, they got 8 guys in the box. I need you to run these deep crossing routes, these over routes, and you throw these go whatever." No, his passing chart his last game, I think like 2 passes 15 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. I get that he is a sustainable, viable game manager. The problem is, I live here in Philly Giants country, sprinkling some Dallas fans for aesthetic. But here, I mean, it has houses to him. My son has a bet with his basketball coach because his basketball coach is a Philly fan, and some of the players on the basketball team are Giants fans. Like, listen, if the Giants win, we get to pick the starting lineup on the game Monday. Like, I mean, it's like ingrained into this area.
Yeah.
Realistically, the team that defends the run better, has the better offensive line, has the better weapons, and has the more trustworthy quarterback, that's the team you pick. Regardless of all the hoopla and the potential contracts and this and the third, Philly controls the line of scrimmage better. They run the ball better. Their quarterback is more trustworthy. And they're playing at home. I know it's not that far, Philly to East Rutherford. It's not that far, so there will be Giants fans. But
Mm-hmm.
Philly's different. Even
Mm-hmm. Remember that.
Eli said, man, I said I was never go back in that building after I retired, but I got to go back now. It's just not a place where you want to go if you don't have to. And then being young Giants, Brian Dable, like I get it's a good story, but that story ends this weekend. I know does Daniel Dimes love what I discovered in my many years of sports debate and these conversations. I've discovered that pundits, talking heads, they want to be the first person to say this person's going to be good when everyone else is kind of on the fence, just to say I told you so. I was watching The Odd Couple the other day, probably Thursday. Greg Jennings had a segment on there, and he said Daniel Jones is a top 10 quarterback. Chris Broussard, Rob Parker went bananas. Hello, is this thing on? Like the whole theatrics. So then Chris Broussard named 10 quarterbacks. And he's like, you're not. Then he tried to argue that you would take Daniel Jones over Kirk Cousins. It's like, no, you won't. It was like it was like, listen, man, you want to do this, or did you just say that because you wanted to say Daniel Jones is top 10 because you're caught in the moment and you didn't really research it? Because that's what it sounds like. And that's what it feels like. It feels like people just want to say, I told you he was blah. I told you he was this, versus just looking at the quarterbacks you already have. You already got Joe Burrow, good quarterback. You already have Patrick Mahomes. You already have Dak Prescott when he's consistent. You already have quarterbacks that are good that you can talk about, and guys that are in a different tier. Stop trying to put guys in these tiers. Like when they try to say Eli was elite. Eli's not elite. He had 2 elite playoff runs. Literally, his record is 500 for his career. He's not elite. But
Don't forget that pass rush too.
I mean, he still has to make throws. You still got,
I know,
but,
but you gotta be,
but what
in the game for those throws to matter.
he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't elite. He wasn't an elite quarterback. Certain guys are elite. Everybody can't be elite. So trying to say, if you can't say a guy is elite and he's top 10, considering it's only 32, that's not elite. You're 10 out of 32. You're in the top third. That's not elite when it's only 32. If it's 332,000 and you're way up in the top 10, okay, you're elite. But it's 32. You're in the average tier. You're in that 11 to 17 where you have guys like Carson Wentz, you have guys like Derek Carr, you have guys like Daniel Jones. I know everyone loves Herbert. I'm not sure he's legitimately top 10. I think people look at his numbers and say top 10, but I don't really feel it all the time. But yeah, the Daniel Jones love is a little bit top. So obviously I'm picking Philly.
You got a score?
Score, we'll go with 30-20.
So I'm so tired of you disrespecting Daniel Jones. This man has improved. All he needed was the right coach. He still don't have receivers that I would call reliable or whatever the case may be. Because as fast as Darius Slayton is, all I seem to remember is that drop on Thursday Night Football against Washington.
Man, that
All
pass
right.
was so overthrown. He was
It
wide.
was,
It
but you're
was,
a
he
receiver. You
was
still got to
wide.
catch it.
That is Daniel Jones' fault. That's what I'm talking about. That play right there. You remember the wide receiver not catching it. He had 20 yards. It was him, the cheerleaders, the fans, and the camera people. They were the only people with heartbeats for 30 yards. And he overthrew him because he is a good game manager.
All
They
right.
can't throw you to victory. He
All
can't
right.
throw you to victory. People like to use the game-winning drives. Yeah, if your defense keeps you in it and you get the ball back and you're down 4 and then you can put the drive together, yeah, I get it. But what about the games where Saquon can't get any yards from scrimmage, receiving or
We gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it.
the
Get out my
games
head.
the games where like where has he thrown 35 to 40 passes, multiple touchdowns, no interceptions, and they won? Does that game exist? And all the time he's been there, because his first year, 24 touchdowns, and then for a couple of years after that, he threw a total of 24 touchdowns, 39, 45. Like, I mean, it's okay for someone to not be elite at their job.
hmm It's not okay for the fifth. It's not okay for the fifth or sixth draft pick, to play the way that he's played, because of course, just to y'all out there, I am being facetious about Daniel Jones. Like, I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. I'm just, being devil's advocate and all that kind of stuff like that. But the Giants are fourth in rushing in the league, rushing yards per game. And Philly is number 5. So whoever can run the ball, going back to what Raph talked about earlier in the trenches, whoever can run the ball wins the day. But for Philly, do you not know that Daniel Jones is capable of running? Because every time they play, I feel like Daniel Jones always has a 20-yard run against them, particularly. It just works out that way for some reason. But a lot of people want to focus on the here and now, which is great. We're here and now. So week 18, the Giants had their seed locked up, sat their starters. Jalen Hurts had to play because Gardner Minshew wasn't going to get that first seed. And the Giants played well. Like, well, not well, but it was a close game. 22-16, I believe, was the final score. So a lot of Giants fans have confidence. But if we come back down to earth just a little bit, and I am not calling you frauds, I'm not calling you fool's gold. I just don't think you're what everybody's been saying you were all week. Because the first time you played Philly, Saquon got held to 28 yards. That's a 2 and an 8. I'm 2-5. He ran for 3 yards more than my name. That's all I'm saying. So another note that Giants fans don't want to hear is that they've lost their last 9 games in the city of Philadelphia. So just saying. And I'm sure Daniel Jones started a few of those games,
Probably
So
fine.
yeah, needless to say, he has not won in Philadelphia just yet. So Minnesota, all last week when we broke down the Minnesota Giants game, the number one thing that I harped on was
Hold on
how
real quick.
slow was that.
I got the Kansas City Jacksonville game on. Trevor Lawrence almost do another one. It bounced off the safety's chest.
See, see, but all I talked about was how slow Minnesota secondary is and how fast the Giants receivers are. So they didn't do anything that I didn't expect them to do per se against the Vikings. Do it against Darius Slay, do it against Philly's secondary, and maybe I can give Daniel Jones that type of credit that Giants fans feels that he deserves. What I'm interested in, and obviously that didn't come to play this season because the first game was 48-22 Philly. But when I look at this, you mentioned Jalen Hurts. See, you're always in my head. You mentioned Jalen Hurts and mentoring Tua and all that kind of stuff. Well, Brian Dable had something to do with that benching because he was the OC at Alabama that year. So how about that? So
Okay.
could Jalen Hurts have a little extra motivation? Not saying because he handled it with grace. He handled it with class beautifully, the way that we would want a player to handle that. But he's still human at the end of the day. So I imagine if I was Jalen Hurts, every time I looked across the field and saw Brian Dable, I'll show you something about offense. That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, as long as Jalen Hurts' shoulder isn't dangling and his arm ain't hitting the ground when he walks, I expect Jalen Hurts to have a big game. I expect Philly to be able to stuff the box because I don't know if Daniel Jones can make the throws against their secondary because they're not going to have enough separation the way they did against Minnesota. So I got the game 28-17. Still one of those games where it's close for a little while because they are division rivals.
But it's
So I don't
like
I don't
Philly trouble.
I don't expect that they're going to hit each other with a lot that they haven't seen from each other. I don't expect that. I just think that Philly is going to line up, smack them in the mouth, and hit them with a little AJ Brown and Devontae Smith every now and again. I think that the Giants are going to revert back to what they were prior to the Minnesota game because the Minnesota game with that weak secondary allowed them the opportunity to switch it up just a little bit and do the things. Brian Dable does adjust. He is a good offensive coach. I think Mike Kafka also has something to do with that. I'll talk about Mike Kafka later. But, I just think that the Giants have heard all week that the Giants, or Philly has heard all week that the Giants are the trendy upset pick of the week. Every channel, like we talked about San Francisco and Dallas, everywhere I go, somebody picks the Giants, and I'm sitting there like, why? The only thing the Giants have better than Philly is their uniforms. That's the only thing the Giants have better than Philly. So let's just throw that out there. But what I do want to know is we came into this season and everybody was trying to, go back to that tier conversation because he's always in my head. And everybody always tried to tell me, you know what? There's Patrick Mahomes and then there's Josh Allen. That is not true. There is Joe Burrow, first of all. First of all, there is Joe Burrow. I'm taking Joe Burrow over Josh Allen every day of the week because Josh Allen plays pinball with the football. Now, if Cincinnati had their full complement of offensive linemen, I would pick Cincinnati to win this game. I think that they're as good as Buffalo. They only finished the game worse. They're on a winning streak. They haven't lost since Halloween when they got their pants pulled down on Monday Night Football by the Browns. And that was pre Deshaun Watson. So Cincinnati was going through something, I guess,
Yeah.
But if they had their full complement of linemen, I would pick Cincinnati. I think the plan is you got to get Jamar into space, bubble screen, slants, whatever it is. But the problem is that Buffalo secondary is pretty damn good. And they have Kyer Elam, the rookie from Florida, who came along last week and played well, and he gave them an extra element to fortify their secondary. So Joe Burrow, for one, may not have time to throw. I heard a stat this morning. Shout out to Mina Combs. I love Mina Combs. Um, Joe Burrow had 2.39 seconds to throw last week at times, and they didn't do anything. He threw for, I believe it was 209 yards against Baltimore.
But
They,
he had
so
a lot of yards against Buffalo. He played him 3 times this year. Every game was under 215 yards. So I think Buffalo and Joe Burrow just have a thing.
or Buffalo, I mean Baltimore. You mean, yeah,
Baltimore
yeah,
have a thing where he just doesn't force it,
right.
and they just
So,
they must match up well in his favorite passing zones. And he's like,
mhm.
check it out.
so
'Cause
so Cincinnati, so Cincinnati does have the best trio of receivers in the league, I think. So, that's where having Kyer Elam comes along, where it's not just up to one corner to shut down Jamar Smith. They have other corners that can potentially match up with Boyd and Higgins, and, if I'm the Chicago Bears, Higgins might be on my short list there. But who can make a downfield play? Is Burrow going to have the time? Or are we going to run into Josh Favre? What I'm saying? Is Josh going to be more Russell Wilson this week? What is he going to do? Because the game is all in his hands. Like, I don't care about what Cincinnati rushes for, what Buffalo rushes for, because Buffalo don't rush for a lot anyway. I just need Josh Allen. If Buffalo's going to win this game, I need Josh Allen to just act like, for one game, he just has to act like he has IQ. That's all it is. He just has to not be Russell Westbrook. He has to not be.
why do people make these caveats? Either Josh Allen does not make good decisions with the football often enough.
I mean, he made him when Dable
Well,
was his offensive coach.
he turned the ball over a lot. Then he
You
fumbled
know.
a lot of picks. He ran too much. He tried to run people over. He's
Mhm.
getting his numbness in his elbow. I like Josh Allen, but I think the far comparison makes a lot of sense. I just think that someone has to be able to tell him, chill out, calm down. We don't need. It was a couple plays like 3rd and 2, and he threw 40 yards downfield. Like he he threw the ball deep more than any other quarterback in the playoffs.
Mhm. Well,
So just run the draw play. Like check to like I know you like the Stephon Diggs look. You see you got one safety in the middle of the field. It looks like you got man to man on the outside. You're in shotgun. You're like, oh, look at this. And you're like, check. Omaha. Just run it. Keep the clock running. Because when you keep putting it up like that, you throw these interceptions, you get opportunities for strip sacks. You exhaust your offensive lineman when you have
Mhm.
pass block a lot. Because they got to drop back and beat these guys who are, run 4.740s.
Well, one more thing I wanted to bring up real quick before I turn it over was Buffalo was 7-1 at home this year. You remember what that one was?
That wasn't the Miami game, was it?
No, it was the how the hell did Justin Jefferson catch that ball game?
Oh,
So
that was the one where Josh Allen made the mistake at the goal line.
go figure. So point being, that wasn't where I was trying to go with it. The point I was trying to say is that in Orchard Park, Buffalo has been good. They haven't lost the season outside of that miraculous catch, whatever the case may be. So Cincinnati already has it stacked against them. Besides the fact that Joe Mixon keeps running his mouth because now he's upset about the neutral site and how they're selling tickets already. What you want them to do? Wait until Monday morning, and then and Joe Burrow. Yeah,
Cincinnati,
everybody sells the tickets. And
like
then Joe Burrow, while I like it, I love it actually when Joe Burrow said that their window is always open as long as he's there. I love it. But you know what, Joe? Shut up and go on the field and win in Orchard Park.
I got Cincinnati winning.
I got Buffalo 27-24.
I got Cincinnati 23-20.
Okay.
Now we got the big one.
A big one.
Dallas and San Francisco.
Yes.
Just to give you a quick update, Travis Kelce touchdown from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
750.
he's about to break the all-time playoff yards record for a tight end.
Something about that having that good connection. So we got, speaking of tight end quarterback connections, Purdy and Kittle, they're on one.
The Iowa connection, Purdy from Iowa State, Kittle from Iowa.
He was like, I can't keep giving to the Hawkeye, but he keeps doing it because wide open in the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a reason to pick Dallas other than I want to pick Dallas. That's it. I just want to pick Dallas. I think people are like underselling how tough it is to win 12 games in back-to-back years. They didn't have Dak for a lot of games. Cooper Rush came in and played well. Yeah, Dak is tied for the lead in interceptions, but in those games where he threw interceptions, he still went 5-2. So if they don't create adversity for themselves, they win 12-5, and they just had this playoff game where they dominated the Bucks. Granted, the Bucks were 8-9, and they seem to be in disarray since August. Like they never really seemed that they gelled at all. So I don't want to say, oh, because they beat Tampa Bay last week, they're definitely going to be. I just think the way that Dallas plays, even though it's very vanilla, because Mike Evans said in the press conference, he was like, what they do is simple. That's crazy. It's like simple popped up on my TV, on my little iPad right when I said the word simple. But they play simple. And it wasn't like derogatory. It's like, listen, we're going to line up like this. And we're going to beat you like this.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke is not going to get some kind of crazy reverse option toss, halfback pass, flea flicker. With Zeke's in here, we're going to run it hard up the middle. We're going to run it hard to the right. We're going to run it hard to the left. We're not going to throw a lot of screen passes to him. We're not going to check it down. We're just going to let Zeke eat, and it's simple. Going to put Pollard in. Pollard presents a little bit different pass blocks, and then he leaks out. Maybe he hits the check down back. CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. Dalton Schultz is Dak's favorite target. I think what everyone likes about San Francisco, Dallas has on each side of the ball,
Mm-hmm.
but no one talks like Joey Bosa, Marcus Lawrence. I mean, yeah, Bosa had a better year, but what you get out of Marcus Lawrence, the Dallas defensive line, you get the same pressure that San Francisco presents. Your linebacking core, Michael Parsons, Van Der Esch. You get the same as you get with Greenlaw.
Fred Warner.
Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Cornerback play, Trayvon Diggs does look in the back a lot, but he gets his hands on a lot. He hasn't been as peaky this year. That's why his interceptions are down, because it's just been like, you know what? You don't want to throw it to me because I can pick it off. So now he just plays coverage. So I think I will take the seasoned quarterback over the rookie. And that's I think that's the advantage. And if anybody want to give Brock Purdy the advantage over Dak, they're just doing it because they want to pick Brock Purdy. I'm giving Dallas the advantage because I think everywhere else it's close enough. We got a kickoff return for a touchdown. Nope, pushed out of bounds at 39. 39 yards ago for a touchdown for Jacksonville. Just to give you an update. So I'm taking Dallas simply because if you lay everything out, the advantage that they have at quarterback is to me that's the key.
Okay. Okay. So I went back and forth on this game, just like I did Dallas last week in Tampa, because I am a Commander fan. So it's hard for me sometimes to be unbiased when it comes to Dallas. I do respect their talent, but I think the difference is their talent is individual, whereas San Francisco's talent is collective. I think that last week was easier to pick the Cowboys just because a lot of people were picking Tampa. There was no expectation, no pressure for real because everybody said Tom Brady's going to do this. He's not going to lose at home. I
I
heard.
I heard Dallas better not lose to Tampa. But
I heard Dallas or Tampa had to go just like this week. We talked about it earlier a little bit. I heard a lot of all the coverage I heard, which I tried not to get too deep into what they're saying, but all the coverage that I heard was this is how Dallas is going to win. This is how Dallas is going to win. San Francisco is a better team, but this is how Dallas is going to win. And I don't know how much that plays in to like the disrespect thing where San Francisco feels slighted as the favorite or whatever the case may be. But what I do know, and I'm gonna pause after I say this because Micah Parsons needs to leave his DNA on this game. All
yeah,
right. So I expect Dalton Schultz to have a big game. Now, this is where it gets interesting because I've been talking to LeBron James fans all week, and they've been telling me about how much he scores in the fourth quarter this season, leads the league in fourth quarter points. So I said, you know what? I'm so confused on this game. What does the fourth quarter look like? So I looked it up, and this is what I found. Dallas is fourth in the league in fourth quarter points allowed, and San Francisco is number 3. So they're only separated by 0.1. So teams don't score on them a lot in crunch time. But conversely, Dallas is third in points in the fourth quarter, and San Francisco is seventh. And they're only separated by a 0.9 there. So I like the coaching matchup here for San Francisco. Mike McCarthy, I think, is a little underrated at times just because he coaches for the Cowboys. So his mistakes are magnified or whatever people perceive his
he
mistakes
does
to be.
challenge flag after the first replay that we get to see at home. People are like, oh, he's an idiot. It's like he doesn't get that message that quick.
Right.
He's
And
Skip Bayless, he's always looking up at the monitor. Well, it's a 60-yard monitor. I want to see if the dude caught the ball. If I can't see it on that, then I'm
yeah.
not flag.
And I did what I told you I was going to do. I went back and watched last year's 49er Cowboy playoff game. And my takeaway was Jimmy G really struggled. He really did. And I think Brock Purdy is going to struggle somewhat. But the reason that I'm picking San Francisco is getting Debo and McCaffrey out to the perimeter in the short pass game. And I just think that they have too much of that for Dallas to hold down for 4 whole quarters. I think that Dallas will do a decent job, snuffing it out most of the game, but I think there's going to be 1 or 2 plays, game of inches type style that will take over the game. And I do think that San Francisco is the most complete team in the league when it comes to the total package of offense, defense, special
Everyone
teams.
keeps saying that. And I'm like, well, what about the San Francisco 49ers that lost to Atlanta that got dominated the whole game? I know Bosa didn't play, but
I
it's like
mean, every
Fred
team
Warner
in
played,
every
Jimmy
team
G
in the
played,
NFL,
Kyle Shanahan was there. It's
every
like
team in the NFL
complete
has
team.
that.
There's a complete team. And it's
Every team in the NFL has that. Like your beloved Patty Mahomes lost to the Colts.
yeah, but
Before Frank Wright even got fired. These things happen.
I just don't get the most complete team narrative. I just think that I think it's overblown.
I just think I just
I
think
think it's a
that
little bit more gassed up than the numbers support because
okay, well, I
we you
mean,
look at the numbers
who's
like
better?
you said the numbers with Dallas. Dallas, you said their scoring is like what
It's
0.09,
like yeah.
0.3 this way. Dallas scores 31.3 points a game. San Francisco is like 30.8. So it's like, how is it that a team that compares on all these different categories to Dallas comparatively are the same? How is
So
it narrative that San Francisco is the most complete team, considering that the team that they're playing, their numbers match up almost identical across the board,
so
and no,
would you say
the most
so would
complete
you
team.
say would you say that Philly is a more complete team than San Francisco?
I would say I like Philly's makeup. I think I think Philly's I think they're more complementary. I think Philly's offense, defense, special teams, they play well together. I just don't understand this narrative that San Francisco, is so much more gelled and elite than the other 31 teams.
Okay.
It's like they're the top. They're a top team. I'll give you that. They're a top team. But they are going into the second week of the playoffs with a rookie quarterback who was the last pick in the draft. I'm not saying the draft matters, but he's a rookie quarterback who's played with nothing but leads. He's played against duds. Like, give me a tough team that he played against.
I can't.
Didn't have one. So it's like, oh, it is a complete team. Yeah, they were playing for the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks against they were supposed to beat. That they would have beat with any quarterback back there because they played
Mhm.
against the Raiders, complete disarray all the time. They played the Bucks. They've been falling apart all year. They played the Rams. I ain't got to say nothing about that. I mean, I understand that he's winning, he's performing well, and it's everyone needs a feel good story. I don't need a feel good story. I need the facts. And the
Okay.
facts are Dallas has had a season that people have criticized every single week. Dak's turning the ball over too much. In those games, it was 5-2, even with the turnover. So if you can turn the ball over 1, 2 times and still be 5-2, and the one against Jacksonville, it hit the guy in his chest.
Well, like I said, I think Dallas is a victim of their past. Like, like we're waiting. A lot of people are waiting for the collapse. We feel that it's going to come at some point. So I think that just goes against them. Until they do it, people aren't going to believe that they can.
Because I think people are setting it up to where Brock Purdy is supposed to lose at some point
Hmm.
because he's a rookie.
Right.
But if he doesn't lose and you sing his praises every single week from the time that he got his first victory until I think San Francisco can win the Super Bowl. No, at no point in any time in my adult life that I've watched football has a team lost two quarterbacks, gone through a third rookie quarterback in November, December timeframe, and people are saying that I think they can win a Super Bowl. When the other conference has quote unquote the better quarterbacks. The other conference has Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, Allen. Like I said, this is before the playoffs started. So people saying that they could win it all with the rookie quarterback in San Francisco when the other conference, who they would have to meet in the Super Bowl, has better quarterbacks. It just to me, it just feels like this bandwagon people want to say, see, they want to put their old they when someone has a clip, like they have a take and
Yeah.
they play it in black and white like it's
Yeah.
real. Like this was
Yeah.
calm down.
Well, well, for the record, I got Philly beating San Francisco next week. But speaking of complimentary, are we complimenting Justin Fields or are we trading Justin Fields?
Man, Chicago, if you have a poker player in your building or mathematician or somebody that's kind of ballsy, sit them in a room and figure out who can we fleece the most picks out of for this number one spot and still get one of the top defensive players in the draft. Because you need a trench. You need a different maker at the line of scrimmage. You're gonna
Hmm.
wide receiver because you're gonna mention the cap space because that's your area of expertise. I'm just looking at the basic. I'm a trench guy. Like I like teams that try to win from the trenches.
Right.
Chicago, gritty trench team. They always have been monsters of the midway. There's no offensive nicknames for Chicago. There's not like if you met someone from Chicago and they were too fancy, you'd be like, "Are you really from Chicago?" Everybody I know from Chicago is gritty. Everybody knows from Chicago is like that tough mind. I granted football teams don't have to take on the personality of the city, but the Bears have done that, and they've done it for decades. So why would you get ridiculous and try to trade away Justin Fields when he just ran for over 1,100 yards with no receiver threat on the team, and you have this cap space, like I said, you'll get into it, and you have wide receivers that are going to be available. You have blueprints that you can look at around the league. Like you have a quarterback you're not paying much money to. There's blueprints that you can follow to make it work. I watched their games, and I don't think it was Justin Fields' fault. I think it was coaching because I watched him load up his hips like he was going to throw the ball and not throw it. Someone has to tell him, listen, man, you're going to keep getting hit if you don't let that ball go. So you either got to give him a different read, a quicker read, or something, or somebody that can get open. You got to get guys in the right position because right now they have guys who are ones and twos. I mean, threes and twos trying to line up as your number one wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't reach for a wide receiver. Uh-oh. Mahomes is limping.
Uh-oh. So what do you think about the Colts sitting at number 4,
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
trying to potentially move up to get that first pick? Because I think it's safe to say that unless the Bears trade Fields, they're not going to take another quarterback. So what about Indy at 4? You think they trade up to try to get somebody, or because they're afraid the Texans are going to get the quarterback they want?
I think if I'm Indy, ooh, I don't like this. Up, Henny's warming up.
Oh no.
Yeah, it didn't look good. Not crazy, but yeah, it didn't. Yeah, I don't like this. So if I'm Indy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting still
Okay.
because Chicago, in theory, shouldn't take a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
If Houston takes one, everyone has Bryce Young as the guy. Why is he out there? Yo, he is clearly limping. All right. Well, obviously, you need the running play.
So I got the Cardinals. The
Sorry,
Cardinals are number 3.
game.
Yeah. The Cardinals are number 3. So you assume Kyler Murray
They're not.
isn't going anywhere, right? Then you got Indy at 4, like I mentioned. So
You can
then you
take
get
a crowd right there and keep your draft capital.
well. Now it gets interesting, because number 5 are the Sea Chickens. So Geno Smith, they want Geno Smith back, but Geno Smith can't be the future answer, right?
You think Arizona's going to trade within their division to move to allow Seattle to
No,
move?
no, 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 no. I'm not asking for trade. I mean, I'm talking about trading with the Bears, like trying to make a move to trade up for the Bears.
But if you're Seattle,
Because Indy's in front of you. So if you don't want to get stuck with Will Levis, or if you want Stroud because somebody else took Young already, what do you do?
then you're going to have to take some of that draft capital you got from Denver and give it to Arizona. You just got to make that pot sweet because it's in division.
Okay, well, what about so what about number 6? What about the Lions? Because they do have Jared Goff,
They're not getting a
but
quarterback. They, I think,
but
yeah, they're not getting a quarterback. They believe in Jared Goff. I think they'll probably get a defensive, like maybe another defensive player. That way they can keep their points per game down. But I can't imagine them jumping. I don't think these quarterbacks. Ooh, yeah, Mahomes limping off the field.
ugh, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Well, the quarter's ending, so he's
But
limping.
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. So what about the Raiders at 7? Because Derek Carr is
They
leaving,
are
obviously.
likely to the gamble. They are likely to go from 7 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Seattle wants a quarterback, they got to make sure that that team down in Nevada doesn't have their eye. Because I think C.J. Stroud is there at 3.
Mm-hmm. So what
But
about
Bryce Young, maybe. I don't like. I think after the first 2 guys, after Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, I can't. Like, I know they got this guy. Well, but he had like 19 touchdowns,
I'm
11.
I'm not a Will Levis guy. A lot of people compare him to Josh Allen. I compare him to college Josh Allen, maybe not NFL Josh Allen.
Yeah, so if you gotta compare, like, then try to get him third round or so. Like it's okay with the quarterback not going in the first round if he's not a first round talent. Because if you miss on this quarterback, you're not missing if you don't take a quarterback in the first round because you think it's too early. I don't know what the history is, but I don't see too many quarterbacks that went third, fourth, fifth, sixth round that really changed the franchise every year. You got Russell Wilson, he went late third, I believe, like 80 something pick, 80,
Yeah.
something like that. Obviously, you have the outlier, Tom Brady. Then you have, I think, Joe Montana went in the third round, but this is before people were inundated with quarterbacks. So in recent history, I don't think anyone's passed on a quarterback that turned out to be great other than Patrick Mahomes, but he still went like 12th
All right.
and a
So
quarterback went ahead of him. So it's like if you have a quarterback that's falling to you 7, 8, 9, 10, and you don't need one, you don't need one Detroit. Chicago, you don't need one at one. Uh Maybe Vegas, you think you need one. You might be able to get a free agent quarterback. You might get a Jimmy G. You might be able to get Tom Brady or something like that.
all right. So
You, yeah.
let me give you a quick rapid fire. Just because of time, I'm gonna give you a quick rapid fire.
All right.
So what about your team at 8? We believe it in Desmond Ritter,
You got to believe in for 17 more games minimum.
Carolina.
Carolina has like 11 dudes in their QB room.
That don't mean they got to stay. And last one I'll give you, if you're Tennessee, um, not that you're giving up on Malik Willis, but do you
Give them
think
on
about it?
already. But I
Okay.
give him already. Vrabel didn't want him. You could tell Vrabel didn't want him, but the way he talked,
Yeah. It's RG3 all over again.
the
You know,
way
to some
Vrabel
degree.
talked about him in the preseason when he was pulling him out of games for running, he was like, I want him to throw the ball. And it was like, he's a rookie. You want him to learn. You don't have to be like, oh, I want him to throw the ball. Like basically saying, I don't want you to be a running quarterback. And then he didn't play him in place of Josh Dobbs unless they plan on getting rid of Tannehill and they didn't want to
I
get
think that's the
Malik
move.
was hurt. But you're trying to make the playoffs. Maybe you're like, nah, we're not good enough for the playoffs. I just don't understand. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Mike Vrabel is in any imminent danger of being fired. So I think you can
he's
take a
fired.
year,
If they don't,
maybe.
I think the Tennessee Titans will probably be one of these teams that goes after one of these veteran quarterbacks.
All
Oh,
right, so I got Justin Fields, 41 touchdowns, 32 interceptions. I don't really care about quarterback wins, but I know everybody else does. So his record is 6-21, but I don't care about that because it's a team game allegedly. This is the Bears' first time
hold on, I
with
got
the.
you for a second.
This is the first time that the Bears have had the number one overall pick since 1947. And a lot of teams like to believe that they're one player away, but the Bears are probably 7 or 8 players away. The GM isn't doing his job if he doesn't listen to trade offers. I wouldn't trade him, but you got to listen. What is interesting to me is Kevin Warren coming in as the new team president. And those of you not familiar with Kevin Warren, he was most recently the Big Ten commissioner, the guy that brought UCLA and USC over. The Bears do have $92 million in cap space, which is $36 million more than the number 2 team, which is his Atlanta Falcons. So $92 million, don't trade Justin Fields. Just spend some of that money. For example, wide receivers are out there in the free agency, and I'm not saying that these people are superstars, but right now all you got is Chase Claypool and Mooney. I like Mooney. I like Cole Kmet, but Mooney ain't a number one. So you got Juju Smith-Schuster out there. You have Darius Slayton, and you have his twin Lazard from Green Bay. You have DJ Shark out there, and you have Mr. Track Star himself, McCole Hardman at running back. You have Saquon Barkley. I don't know if he's going to come to Chicago. I don't know if he would want to come to Chicago, but throw the damn bag at him and see if he'll come to Chicago. You got Josh Jacobs out there, your rushing champion for this season, and the Raiders are going to be bringing in a new quarterback. Derek Carr ain't there. Maybe if you throw a boatload of money at him, he's out there.
I
You
like
got
the
Tony.
Raiders. I like the Jacob suggestion.
Yeah, you got Tony Pollard out there. You got Miles Sanders. I don't think Tony Pollard is a Bears running back per se, for their style that you talked about. But I'm just saying he's out there. Miles Sanders is out there. This is the one I'm interested in because the Bears never do this. Go get Kareem Hunt. Jamal Williams from Detroit is out there. And then finally Deontay
Love
Freeman.
Detroit though.
What's that?
They love him in Detroit. They're not getting rid of him. He's a fan favorite.
They
He
don't
won't
got to get rid
him.
of him. The Bears just have to come through with the Brinks truck. That's all.
That's the thing. Running backs don't command the money, so you're not. You're gonna offer what, $8 million a year for a good running back now in free agency. They're not giving them any money. 3 years, $26 million maybe if they're lucky, because the way people are trying to devalue the running back position, but yet always talk about how rushing the ball for over 100 yards a game gets you wins, but they don't want to pay the people who do it. It's weird, and I get it.
Right. So,
Um, but
so as far as potential suitors,
the Bears just they have to do look at what they've done the last 5 or 6 years in free agency and say none of that worked.
mm-hmm.
They went out and paid for Nick Foles. They went out and got it. Like none of that worked. Get some
Right.
Get some playmakers on the field. You have a quarterback that's confident. Get some playmakers. You got the trade with Baltimore where you got some picks for Roquan Smith. Get some playmakers. You need that. That's how you build your team, because it doesn't happen boom overnight. Like you don't just get Tom Brady with those players in the Tampa Bay and then boom, Super Bowl. They drafted very well every year. And then James Winston threw 30 picks. They got rid of him and they brought in, boom, the quarterback. So it's plug and play. You have teams like Indy. Indy draft well, defense for years, and they try to do the same thing. It's like, no, they didn't draft the quarterback well. You got to be able to do that. So I think Chicago keeps going for free agents, but they don't go for wide receivers because they don't have the quarterback, so wide receivers don't come. Right now, you're hot. Justin Fields is hot. He's entertaining. You can get players around him. He went to Ohio State, so maybe you look around and see if you can work some of those kind of connections. Just that you could show wide receivers that we have a big arm quarterback here who will get you the ball if you come to Chicago. It's the opposite of what you have in Baltimore, where it's difficult because what you have on film is a team that doesn't throw the ball to wide receivers and a quarterback that doesn't seem to get the ball deep. Whereas Justin Fields, he's trying. He wants to throw the ball, just nobody.
yeah, he definitely overthrows wide open receivers. He definitely does that.
He
If he
definitely
does nothing,
he
if he
wants
does nothing else.
he wants to let it fly.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens that you can be the missing piece. Like if you're selling your team to you're selling the Bears to a guy like T. Higgins. If you're selling them the Slate, like listen, you can be the missing piece.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I got a question for you. When I wake up on a random August morning, excited for preseason football, is Sean Payton the coach of the Broncos?
For $25 million, I go help him coach.
Yeah, because I heard something that I didn't like. I heard like Russell Wilson was like contacting him and everything and talking to him, and like I just don't know how I feel about that. I mean, if he is going to be the coach, that's one thing, but nothing official has come out yet. Russell, get off the phone, spend some time with your wife for a few days. If Sean Payton is the coach, you can talk to him all you want.
I don't think it's a good move. I personally don't think. I don't understand I understand that he's available as a head coach and he has, some cachet. But I don't understand him being more valued monetarily than any other coach that's currently in the league. His record and Mike McCarthy's record are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He had Drew Brees
Mm-hmm.
in essentially the prime of his career because he had a very long prime. They went 7-9 3 years in a row in a very less than difficult division.
Yeah, I think they had a 5-11 in there too.
Mixing up 5-11 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, teams have up and down years. I get that. Yeah, Bounty Gate. I'm not saying you can't get a second chance, but all these things fall on the head coach. So none of that was like really rectified because it wasn't as if he got all of this stuff, the Bounty Gate, the 5-11, and the 79 seasons, and then he won the Super Bowl to show
Mm-hmm.
this is trajectory. He won the Super Bowl rather early, and then everything else is essentially chaos. He is not like
Honestly,
hired me for 20.
I would honestly, I probably just would have hired Harbaugh. I mean, he has a proven track record. He doesn't have the Super Bowl ring, but he has the proven track record. I think that he's proven to be just as good with quarterbacks as Sean Payton, being that Sean Payton had the same quarterback, but I can, go to Kaepernick. I can go to Stanford, and I can look at Michigan right now to tell you that Harbaugh. So if I was the Colts, I would be talking to Harbaugh too. But as it is, out of the people that I've seen that have interviewed with the Colts, I really like Mike Kafka, offensive coordinator for the Giants. He started out as a GA. Huh?
Why? What did he do as an offensive coordinator for the Giants that you think will make him a good head coach?
You
We
know
talked
what he
about
did.
Daniel Jones.
You know what he did.
Literally, like that.
I just think he's a good
That's the,
coach. He
for
came
me.
up in the Kansas City system. Spent some time with them. He has 7 years of offensive coordinator experience. I just think that he has a weak quarterback that he was able to find a way. That team had no business making the playoffs. I put it like that. And it's easy to give Dable the credit because he's the head coach, obviously, but they got coordinators as well.
Yeah,
They got coordinators
I mean, you
as
got to
well.
get your coaches from somewhere. Um, so if he's one of the more tenured offensive coordinators, 6, 7, 8 years, all right, I think that's a viable candidate. My thing is like I just don't understand how the coach, for instance, Brandon Staley got the job in LA because he was the defensive coordinator
For the Rams.
of the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rams had like top defensive players. So are you really the coordinator? Or are you just calling plays for outstanding?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Yeah, and
that's the piece that always baffles me. It's like, okay, are you the reason that the defense only allows 17 points a game, or is it the fact that Von Miller, not he wasn't there, but like guys like Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Frank Clark,
Jalen Ramsey, yeah.
all these guys are these guys making plays in San Francisco? You have Fred Warner and Greenlaw. These guys making plays, and you are just calling them, or did you make them better? Did you teach them different techniques?
Right.
Did his sack total go from 8 to 12 under you? Was his interceptions 3 to 6? Like that part. The Nathaniel Hackett thing. He was the offensive coordinator in Green Bay. When LaFleur designs a game plan, head coach calls all the plays, Aaron Rodgers throws the ball. What is Hackett doing?
I don't know, but the word on the street is the Jets really like him, so he may end up as the OC there. And I don't know, but if you're Carolina, you got to hire Steve Wilkes, right?
No,
No.
no.
Players been players been the
You're
players
gonna
have been
lose, and this is why. This is why you're in a lose-lose situation.
all right.
You're an owner,
Mm-hmm.
bought the team. You're a money guy. Like I think he has money through communications, some kind of computer, Silicon Valley kind of guy. Money that way. So you got his money, a lot of it. You hire Steve Wilkes. Then what do you do in the building? Like you didn't change anything about the guy you fired before. You just hired another dude that worked there. Say he doesn't build a good enough staff, or you don't give him the leverage to build a good enough staff. and you fire him in a year, because it's not like they have the quarterback room is overloaded, and there's no one that's really viable. So they're gonna have another average year at best. Sam Darnold's not gonna make this huge jump if he started him. You're gonna have to do something. So
Or
like,
maybe they reach for Levis at number 9.
so you're in a rebuild. You gotta rebuild, because what you're doing is like you're just essentially putting the same pieces back in place. Because is Steve Wilkes, if you hire him, is he gonna fire all the guys that were on the staff with
That's
him
a
and
good
Matt?
question. That's a good question.
He's probably gonna keep most of them, because it's like, dog, you got hired on. We were together. Matt Rule gets fired. They hire you. Now you firing me. So now that same guy has to go hire new people. People know, like, oh, so wait a minute, y'all were all on the same staff together. They pick you, and then you fire all these other guys, and you want me to come work for you?
Right.
No one. And then you have to know the history of, like, some black coaches don't. He had one shot. He got fired after 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
This Matt Rule got a couple of years, but Dave Timber fired him. You could tell he's like, I need to get on the ball. So he has to go outside. He has to get somebody else, and he has to. Steve Wilkes can go interview somewhere else, but I wouldn't. If I were Steve, I wouldn't want to get hired on there.
And oh, by the way, I don't want to talk about these quarterbacks without mentioning that somebody will probably leap, and take a huge gamble on Anthony Richardson from Florida. So with that being said, we got the Texans. So we know their history with black quarterbacks. I'm sorry, black coaches. We know their history there in the last couple of years. But I really like D'Amico Ryans there, just because he did play there, team captain and everything like that. He has the history, so I'm sure that he cares about the franchise. I've been hearing Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator from the Eagles, is probably the lead candidate right now.
I think defensively they were a good team. I remember they pushed Dallas to the brink.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Ryans, I like that for all the reasons you said. Played there. Was a player who probably loves the city, loved the team, big part of the organization. I don't know if the black coach aspect of it factors as much to what Houston's talking about. I think Houston just made bad decisions hiring the two guys, because like hiring Cully made no sense. It just didn't make any sense, and I don't know why they just, like, there was better candidates out there that were younger, that were black, white. I mean, McDaniels out there. There was plenty of other candidates out there. Like, why would you hire a guy that seemingly didn't seem to have the resume to get hired on?
Mm-hmm.
Because he was a wide receivers coach in Kansas City the year that the wide receiver caught a touchdown. Where was he at in between that time?
That's a good question. He was sick, and forget the fact that he was about 64 years old.
Yeah, like 60, 62, 63
And
years
I
old.
mean, Lovey's no spring chicken either.
Yeah, so like I think that was my thing, is like you hired people who, I don't know if they have the time and energy
Mm-hmm.
to turn your franchise around 2 years in a row. So you got to go out there and get a young guy and give him 3 or 4 years, let him cook. But that's the piece there with Houston. Like, I don't know if it's a history of black coach. I just think that the last 2 years just didn't make any sense.
All right, so finally, the Cardinals. And I know he's not going to leave. I know exactly what you're going to say, but I'm just going to throw it out there anyway. If I were the Cardinals, I'd take a serious look at Bieniemy. But he ain't leaving that because, maybe he's coaching waiting or something and we don't know about it, or like maybe he has some kind of assurances that he's going to be taken care of financially or whatever the case may be to stay there if he's calling the plays, of course.
I would.
And then, but as a side note, and no, this is not a 2-5 is trying to hire all the black coaches, but I like Brian Flores there as well, because I think Kyler Murray needs a disciplinarian that'll put his foot in his ass and, tell him to get off the Call of Duty, tell him to study or whatever the case may be. Somebody that on game day commands respect, and I think Flores at least does that.
Yeah, I saw something in the group that he was going to interview for defensive coordinator
For
in
Minnesota.
Minnesota. I like an adult in the room for Kyler Murray. The problem is he tore his ACL so late. You don't know what his recovery is going to be. You don't know if he doesn't like the hire. Is his he got rocked. Is his knee not going to heal?
Mm-hmm.
Does he sit out all next year? And do you play a whole year with a backup and get fired?
And without DeAndre Hopkins.
Because they're going to trade him.
Mm-hmm.
So do you go in there with a cupboard half full trying to make a whole meal, and then they fire you and they hire the next hot shot offensive coordinator? Kyler Murray comes back. They get, this kid Sky Moore from Kansas City starts playing well. They trade for him. Whatever. Now another Eric Coryell all over again in Arizona. And you
Yeah.
again. So I wouldn't go anywhere where the cupboard is bare unless there's draft picks and I'm in position to make a good pick. So Houston, they've had a rocky history, but you got the number 2 overall pick with expectation.
And don't forget
Quarterback.
And don't forget Houston has number 12 as well.
And they got 12. So you got 2 and 12. You have 2 back-to-back years of fired coaches. So that's at least Culley's probably getting paid for last season, this past season, next year, and maybe one more year, unless they give him like a flat-out buyout. Then you have Lovie Smith. If he got a 3-year deal, so he got paid for 1 year, you can get paid for 2 more. If I go in there and I'm coaching this next season, I imagine that they wouldn't want to fire another coach and be paying 3 guys to do get 4 guys, essentially, because you got to hire another guy to pay 4 guys to be doing one guy's job.
Yeah, I don't think they would, but for some reason Auburn likes to do that.
Auburn goes through coaches like it's like you go in the meeting wrong and they're like, man, you're fired. I'm like, what? That color looks too close to Alabama. Like,
yeah.
Like it's a hoodie. This is working out. What? Nah.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up today, we want to know what Mr. Rutley has on his chest.
What I got on my chest? I got clickbait. If people don't know, it's a term that these millennials use where the headline of the article or the thumbnail of the article implies something nefarious or something ridiculous to make you click on it. Normally it's based around trying to get some kind of outrage. Want you to be outraged by something, because that's the new thing. They want you to be everyone to be outraged. Don't want to have any, outlines of how we're going to solve any of these problems. But we had 2 incidents. Well, one incident with Shannon Sharp and T. Morant at the game. The Lakers Grizzlies game last night. A little scuffle broke out. If anybody's ever been in a nightclub with testosterone built up, everyone gets in a little circle. Everyone's pushing and grabbing. Some people trying to break it up. Some people trying to get through. No one's really trying to fight. It's not really a thing. People think people know how to fight until you see them throwing a punch and you realize, oh, you didn't learn how to fight growing up. So people like to posh, it's called peacocking. So they had this little scuffle sometime early in the game. But towards the end of the game, Shannon Sharp, T. Morant, no security around, no personnel from either team, standing on the sideline, shaking hands, embraced, obviously squashed it. Just testosterone is high, adrenaline's going, things of that nature. So they've obviously squashed that situation. That happened before the game ended. But if you look up any article now, it only shows the original scuffle, doesn't show the handshake. If you look at it right now, it'd be just the original scuffle and all of this, and just the 20-second clips of that and 10-second clips of that. And then some of them have sound, some of them don't. So as I'm scrolling through that, I see another article. DeJounte Murray's recent interview clip proves that Spurs dodged a bullet. I'm like, what did he say? Click on it. All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson. And a paraphrase, all he said was that in San Antonio, I felt like they didn't want me there. They didn't want me to be at my best. I was there for 6 years. And then even Steven Jackson was like, I didn't realize you were there that long. He's like, I just felt like they were, like I said, I'm paraphrasing, like they were holding me back because they didn't want me to outshine the system. They wanted the system to be this. So that's all he said. And he plays for a different team now, so he's allowed to say that. It's not like he's talking about his current team is currently paying him. He was like, hey, Patrick Mahomes wants to go in the game. They're like, no, Patrick. He's upset. But so all he said was like, listen, I felt like I was on the team that didn't want me. But the headline would make it seem like he was saying stuff that wasn't true. He just said that I felt like they didn't want me. That was my feeling. And ultimately it turned out because they traded him. So it's like not like he said something that was untrue. It's not like they paid him after he felt that way and they paid him. He's like, they don't want me. He's on another team. They trade him to another team. So that's what I gotta get off my chest. The clickbait, especially when it comes to these, especially when it comes to the black athlete, the social media, it just seems like they want to showcase like some kind of Mandingo fighting personality trait. And it's like, no, sometimes people need to hear the truth, even if it seems unpleasant. And his truth wasn't unpleasant. It simply was, I feel like this team didn't want me, and I think they put actions in place that supported that feeling. So that's what I
I
get up.
can I can dig it. I can dig it. So originally, I always do this. I don't know why I do this, but I always do this. So, so originally, I wanted to talk about Gronk and Aaron Rodgers. I wanted to talk about listen to the whole statement because Gronk went on and on, or people have been going on and on about Aaron Rodgers is selfish and he all he thinks about is the MVP. When in the very next sentence, he said, you don't go out on the field unless you feel like you can win it all. So he filled your requirement to make a championship statement and you still rejected it. It kind of reminds me of what happened with Skip Bayless a couple of weeks ago when he made the comment during the Damar Hamlin situation. I mean, you could chalk it up to bad timing, but, a lot of people, because of who he is, I'm sorry, Rajon, a lot of people, because of who he is, took the opportunity to crap all over him because he was trying to say that the game was irrelevant at the point of his tweet while ignoring the first two tweets that were asking for prayers for Damar Hamlin. And I'm no Skip Bayless fan by any means, but you just got to tell the truth and be genuine. But where I am going to go today is Tony Dungy because I believe in the art of disagreement. We are allowed to disagree. Life would not be fun if we all thought the exact same way. He has his views on the LGBT community, he has his views on religion, and he considers himself to be a man of God. From everything that I've ever read about Tony Dungy or heard about Tony Dungy from whoever was speaking on him at that time, I heard nothing more than he's a man of character, he's a leader, he's inspirational, and he's just one of those people that you want to have in your corner. Now, granted, there's people that I support that I don't agree with everything, every single word that comes out of their mouth. So yeah, he went a little far talking about litter boxes and all this kind of stuff like that. Like he was off in some far right wing world or whatever the case may be. But you know what? Last time I checked, as a vet, and as a vet, America is a country where you're allowed to be different. You're allowed to have freedoms to say the things that you need to say. Now, that doesn't mean that you're free from consequences. That doesn't mean that you're free from somebody else having an opinion about whatever it was you said. But what that means to me is that you people out there asking for NBC to remove Tony Dungy and take him off of TV, you're missing the boat and you're not being American. Your view is not the only view that matters. Just because someone says something that you disagree with does not make them evil. If you want Tony Dungy off of TV, play the long game and just don't watch no more. But guess what? You can't live without your football. You know, why don't you just turn the channel while he's on there? They do ratings by segment, they do ratings by sections, A blocks, and all that kind of stuff like that. So if you want to get Tony Dungy off TV, stop watching the pregame show. or whatever the case may. Stop watching the halftime show. Just turn the channel. But to simply want him removed because he doesn't share a view that you share is no different than what you're accusing of the people on the other side of you doing. You want to call them fascist, racist, all these things like that. What makes you any better? That's what I got to get off my chest because I'm tired of hypocrisy. I can disagree with anybody in this world. As long as they're not being disrespectful, racist, any of those things, I can live with that because that's their personality. That's who they are. The moment that they cross those lines is where I got an issue. So Tony Dungy, you know, next time maybe not talk about the litter boxes, but if you want to be a man of God, be a man of God and be out there publicly because there's probably people out there that want to be devout and religious, but they don't feel comfortable in public. And you're showing them that it's okay to do that. I'm not particularly religious myself, but I envy the ability and the want to stand on your beliefs. So that's what I wanted to get off my chest.
There you have it, folks. We just wrapped up our third episode of Sports Reports as Ordered. For Michael Wilson, Raphael Rutley, signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed. You can follow on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
2-Bit Reports.
2-Bit Reports. We'll be having the YouTube channel up soon. We'll have the Instagram up and running. I want to thank anyone who becomes a fan early on that we're going to continue to do this as long as we can. As of right now, we're worked through the process. Rome wasn't built in a day. So we're putting together brick by brick, piece by piece, and we appreciate who supports us, and we'll highlight the support as we continue on this process. So I hope you guys enjoy your sports for this week. I hope you enjoyed this conversation that we had. We tend to do this, like I said, me and Mike, we do this all the time. Thankful that he has taken the time out of his day and his life. He's very busy to sit down with me and share some of his wisdoms with me so I can absorb that, because there's nothing better than a good conversation.
Facts.
Even if only 10 people watch this, even if only him and I watch this is a good conversation we recorded, we kept on docket that, we can enjoy, look back upon. Maybe when I'm right about Dallas, we'll do like a little clip, black and white, and so as we get better at this thing, you guys will understand. You'll see.
And I will admit that I was wrong. If I was wrong, I don't have those problems, And I appreciate your kind words. And before we go, I just want to give a shout out to Rob Parker. I want to give a shout out to Josh Pate and Late Kick Live, Pate State. I want to give a shout out to Academy Sports, and I want to give a shout out to Red Bull. Love you, America.
Salute.
Peace.
Peace.